It's the eCommerce Master Plan podcast. Here to help you solve your marketing problems and grow your e-commerce business. Cutting through the hype to bring you inspiration and advice from the e-commerce sector and beyond. Here's your host, Chloe Thomas.
Hello and welcome to our first podcast of 2020 and the first episode in our 2020 e-commerce master plan growth series sponsored by Omnisend. This is the fourth time we've dedicated January to helping you find new ways to grow your e-commerce business. We've got some great and varied episodes coming up for you this month. There's 9 of them in all, numbers 249 to 256, so make sure, like Pokemon, you catch them all. We're starting with one of the UK's biggest retailers and diving into making that leap from blast emails to something far cleverer and more rewarding. I met our guest for this episode at the 2019 Internet Retailing Expo, where she was giving a presentation in the conference theatre I was chairing. Her session was so good and the content so valuable, I knew she'd make a great guest. It took us a little while to make the recording happen, but trust me, you are in for a treat. Before we get into that though, please do check out our sponsors. Omnisend, the marketing automation platform tailored for e-commerce. Omnisend provides sophisticated omnichannel marketing automation tools for sales-driven marketers that have outgrown generic email marketing platforms. Engage your customers and boost your e-commerce sales with dynamic emails, text messages, Facebook Messenger, and retargeting ads on Facebook and Google, all from just one platform. Try Omnisend for free for 14 days. Just visit omnisend.com/masterplan and get started. Everyone in your business should read this book, whether they are in marketing or not. Why? Because it removes all the smoke and mirrors around marketing for e-commerce, channel by channel, but still delivers for your marketing team on detail and how to plan for success. That's what Nicola Fox, ex-head of CRM at Missguided, said about my new book, E-commerce Marketing: How to Get Traffic That Buys to Your Website. You can grab the Kindle or paperback on your local Amazon store now. Or if you're not quite ready to commit to buying the book, head to ecommercemarketingbook.com to get the free crash course, including the first 2 chapters. Let's welcome our guest expert. Nicola Fox is a retail marketer specialising in CRM and loyalty. Over the last 10 years, she's been working for top UK retailers like Holland Barrett, where she designed and developed a healthcare loyalty programme. And most recently, she worked at fast fashion giant Missguided, where she took on a task familiar to anyone in e-commerce, shifting consumer marketing from batch and blast to a data-driven, segmented, personalised programme. A difficult enough task in a small, slow-moving retailer, let alone in one of the fastest, biggest retailers around. Hello, Nicola.
Hi, Chloe.
Very cool to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to finding out all about what you got up to at Missguided. But before we get into that, how did you yourself get into this wonderful world of e-commerce?
Well, I actually progressed my career with fairly established retailers who actually had a heavy high street presence. And so whilst I wasn't ignorant of e-commerce, I did come to it fairly recently. My roles had always crossed over with e-commerce teams and direct response channels, but it was actually only when in a customer loyalty role, I found myself looking more and more at how I could smooth out that divide between online and offline that I wanted to understand more, because I felt that customers should be seen as people rather than orders or transactions, and that apportioning them to a particular channel just destroyed that experience for them. So I made the move into e-commerce so that I could deepen and broaden my understanding and sort of fill that void in my experience, but also get to grips with how omnichannel could actually work in practice. So I requested and took part in a short secondment, which was then made permanent as head of digital marketing at Holland Barrett. And then that really springboarded my move to pure play fashion retail and Missguided. And it was there that my experience in e-commerce and online retailing really kind of grew, and I was able to understand a lot more about the application and execution, getting that first-hand experience of those end-to-end changes that are required in order to make e-commerce data truly valuable to you.
I love that you started off by you ended up in e-commerce because you're trying to solve a problem that you had. Because I often say to retailers and marketers that you shouldn't just go, I want to do email. You should be like, I've got a problem with turning people who visit my website into buyers. How can I solve that? Oh, I could use email. And you've done exactly that with your career. You've gone, right, I want to make the customers be understood as human beings and understand all the intricacies of their relationship with us. How can I do that? I need to get involved with e-commerce. It's a really important distinction to make for people, is that you don't just go, I want to do X. You need to understand what the problem is that brings it in. So I love that that's how you got started off. So let's tick some of the boxes on Missguided and explain for some of our international listeners who might not be familiar with the brand in particular, what it is. Because we're going to be focusing on what you got up to there. And the reason we're going to be focusing on what you got up to there is because I think every retailer deals with that challenge of moving from batch and blast to proper comms. So Missguided, where are they and where are they selling to?
Missguided is a fast fashion retailer, and it's based in Manchester, which is in the northwest of England. It was established just over 10 years ago in 2009, and it's one of the fastest growing fast fashion retailers in the UK. So it's a really big success story for the northwest, but also for the UK itself. Their focus is obviously fashion for women that usually range between 16 and 35 in age. And they trade across the world, actually, but they run websites across 9 territories, including the UK, United States, Australia, France, Germany, Poland, and Spain. And the in-house team manage everything from the design of the ranges to the buying, the merchandising on site. There are translation teams in-house, finance teams, and obviously the IT development, which is a big part of what Missguided does, because they manage multiple platforms and there's ongoing development around that. They exceed turnover of 200 million, which is, really, really fast growth in that 10 years. And from my perspective, it's one of the most exciting places to work. It makes the hairs on the back of my neck stand on end thinking about it, because there's a real desire by everybody involved to make amazing things happen and be better than you thought you could ever be. And the teams are really not limited by the can'ts and the should nots. They just latch onto an idea and they go out there and they grab it with both hands. And I loved it.
Very cool. And I guess the fact that everything's done under the same roof makes changing things and adapting things potentially much faster, because you can literally get everyone around the table this afternoon, just have the idea this morning and it can be happening by tomorrow type thing.
Yeah, it's true. It's both a blessing and a curse having everything under one roof. So it certainly is fast, and it's fast for a good reason, because the industry is fast, and if you're not doing it, then your competitor is. But also because the teams are agile and want to work together. They've got they're very dynamic. So we can make amazing things happen very quickly. But also it can mean that sometimes, because everything is in-house, there are particular pressures and bottlenecks with that resource. So you've got to be on your game to make stuff happen. But usually it's a great place to be.
Very cool. Well, I think we could probably spend an entire podcast talking about how to be on your game to make that happen. But I think we're gonna go to the advertised topic, which is batch and blast to CRM proper. So sending one email to everybody, one message to everybody, to working out the right message to the right person at the right time. We all want to do it. I think most of us, though, myself included, sometimes we look at it and go, oh gosh, that's an awful lot of work. So how do we get started in doing that, Nicola?
Yeah, so I mean, it's well documented, isn't it, that over the last 10 years at least, I think marketers have been on this path from having very little data to actually having more than they know what to do with. And in their defense, until recently, the technology just wasn't there to support them in being able to turn that data into insight and insight into action. So there are a lot of retailers, bar Tesco and Boots, there are a lot of retailers out there who are struggling with this and struggling to actually bring it to fruition. And my experience has been exactly that. Manipulating data at customer level takes a long time. It takes a significant amount of effort and usually quite highly skilled resource. And so from a day-to-day perspective, that data and insight is almost useless. And, for real-time decision making, you just can't use it. So in many instances and many businesses, that insight is really nice to know and very valuable, but actually just gathers dust. But the technology has improved and retailers are demanding more of those platforms. So the opportunities are there, which is great news for everybody. And I think, as a result, I do often get asked, how do you know when it's the right time to start? What do you do? And I would say that if increasing your performance and improving your customer experience is on your agenda today, then yes, it's the right time to start. How you do that? Well, in my view, there are two big areas that need to be reviewed in your business in order to succeed in mobilizing that data and making that data something that actually turns the cogs of your business. And those two things are technology and culture, and they are of equal importance. Technology, because having the right tools will make the use of your data more tangible, more intuitive, and more efficient. It'll give your marketing teams the ability to do stuff with your data, which, is important, right? And secondly, but equally as important, culture. Because
Nicola, before we dive into culture, can we dive down into the world of tech for a minute or two?
Yeah.
Is that all right with you?
Yeah, of course.
The technology side, you obviously work for some very large businesses who are buying different tech to the smaller businesses. Is this technology-wise something which only the larger businesses can do, or is it something that someone who's only turning over 500,000, 1 million can get access to tech that does it now?
I think the technology is more accessible. And, what I would say is it's, let's be clear, it's not about diving into a new solution, believing that that's going to solve all the problems for you, because actually it's more likely to create you more. So you've really got to kind of do your research based on who you are as a business and what you're trying to solve for. So use the people within your business, bring together well-informed people, either through your contacts or if they exist within your business already, bring them together and talk to them and explore the capabilities of what you're looking at. And bring in those solution providers and talk really frankly and openly about what the needs of your business is or are. Because, and don't be ashamed. Don't sort of feel like, oh, well, the needs of my business are really quite basic and rudimentary and they're not very visionary. Just talk to them. They're your needs. They're the needs of your business. And if they make an incremental improvement in your business, then you're winning. So I think it's not about going out and buying just the biggest ticket price product, because I've been in big retailers who've done that and made a mistake. It's about finding the solution that's right for you, and cost is a consideration, obviously.
I could not agree with you more. And I think one of the really cool points you made there was about, if you think what you want to do isn't interesting, the only interesting thing about improving the CRM and improving the communication and how you do it and moving away from batch and blast is the amount of money it drives. That's the only interesting thing. It's a really cool abandoned baskets program. That's really cool because it's going to bring you in the money. It doesn't have to be complicated. It just has to be the right thing to put the right message in front of your customer to improve your relationship with them and make it work. And I'm so glad you said that, because I think a lot of people sit down and go, oh, it looks too simple. I must be doing it wrong. And it's like, no, be glad it's simple.
Simple's good, and it's where you need to start from, because if you don't start simple and then design out from there, then actually you're just going to kind of get your teams embroiled in lots and lots of complicated journeys that actually they can't manage, and they're not developed and mature enough to be able to cope with. So start simple, start with a need that is specific to your business, and then design out from there. That's what I'd say.
I could not agree with you more. And you mentioned the teams there. So teams must equal culture. So let's come back to that second thing which you need in place, which was the culture, wasn't it? So what's so important about the culture part of this?
Yeah, I mean, for me, culture is a really big part of whether you're going to succeed in making data a big part of your business. Because if your business and the individuals in it are not prioritizing that data, and they're not viewing its importance in the same way as you, and they're not adopting the use of it, then any of those technology investments that you make will really struggle to deliver a return. Because actually there's likely to be some hearts and minds to win over on how you use data within your business. And that won't happen overnight. But remember, there's room for everything, because what you're really aiming for is that nice, perfect combination of data and insight, but also instinct. So make sure that at the table, you're giving a seat to everybody who brings those assets to you.
I love it, because that hearts and minds piece, I find a lot of the time, you said about big businesses you work for who've gone out there, bought the most expensive thing that's never worked. I find there's also a lot of businesses who bought something really, really cool, but never used it to do anything other than batch and blast.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's because it's not so much about whether it's the wrong technology or the wrong attitude within the business. It's just about the fact that in order for teams to change how they work, which is what we're talking about here really, they've got to be comfortable with the changes that you're making. And if you just simply slap in new technology and expect them to use it, there's going to be a little bit of friction, because actually what you've got to remember is that these teams have been built up around channels and knowing their stuff in that channel. And so if that they'll pride themselves on having control over that, and making decisions and setting campaigns live when they're ready. They won't be quite ready for the data to sort of start overtaking on that decision making. And so that's why I say kind of start simple, start with something that's a need within your business. Use the technology that's most appropriate to solve that problem for you, and make sure that your teams are really bolted on and, ready to sort of start using that technology and moving forward with it. Otherwise, if one of those things isn't in place, you're just going to find that it's a bit wonky.
And we don't want it to be wonky. Wonky is bad, everybody. You mentioned channels there, and I've referred to email a few times, but what marketing channels might we be including within this project?
Well, this will differ for every single business. And for some businesses, there will be channels like email that really are their bread and butter. And so it's about exhausting all of the capabilities within that individual channel. But for others, like Missguided and like bigger retailers, there'll be lots of other channels in place. So it's everything from your acquisition channels, so your paid search channels, your paid social channels, retargeting, organic social as well, through to kind of your more retention channels, so email, SMS, and things like WhatsApp, push notification, web layers, that kind of thing. So you really need to be thinking across every touch point with your customer. It's okay if those are quite few in your business or they're quite extensive. But what you've got to remember is that we're talking people here. We're talking experience and journey, if you will. And so if your customer is going to interact with any of those channels, then you need to be thinking about it within that journey. Because what you don't want to do is have one channel sending one message to a group of customers and another channel conflicting that message. What you want is a nice, smooth, continual conversation with that customer.
And you mentioned a marketing method there, or a channel, which I am not familiar with. So you said web layers. What are web layers?
So web notifications or web personalization. It's potentially two different things. So web notifications are a little bit like an app notification on your phone, but they appear for you on your desktop. So particularly useful if you find that actually you want to interact with your customer during the working day, when there may be sort of a fairly sedentary customer. But also the web layers is kind of a more personalization level. So bringing that personalization to maybe your homepage or specific areas of your site, where you're delivering a personalized message to that user rather than it be a piece of the site that everybody sees.
I'm aware of the tactic, she says, feeling slightly embarrassed she asked the question. But remember, guys, there are no stupid questions in e-commerce. Web layers is such a good way of talking about that. And it's not a phrase I've come across before. So I should be adapting that into my own vocabulary. Thank you very much, Nicola.
Don't think I coined it, but there we go.
No, you told me about it. It counts. It definitely counts. Now, we've talked about the team, and the culture. We've talked about the tech. Once we've kind of got those things in place, how do we know which bit of kind of automation or segmentation to start with? Because I find that can be quite a challenging one. Do you start at the beginning of the customer journey? Do you go after the retention piece first? Where do you start, or how do you work out where to start?
So I think the first thing to say is that it's not about immediately stopping what you do today, because everything that you're doing within your business today is valid. It might be valid just for today, or it might be valid for a bit longer. And I think, there may be things that you choose to switch off, but most likely what will happen is that you evolve your approach over time as your understanding improves, your capabilities increase, and you learn what works and what doesn't. But what I would say is those two big areas are key. And without giving those attention, I unapologetically say it will feel like you're wading through treacle, because it is so hard to turn the tide on being data-driven if you're not focused on those two areas. But the reality is that your business and your customer will demand you to do something of the next stage, which is to start. Because even if you believe that you don't have enough data or insight or knowledge, you need to start that thinking process. You need to start planning, visualizing, and delivering on what your customer strategy is going to be. Because results aren't improved by just continuing to communicate to everyone. And even the smallest of adjustments that you can make will really kind of set you on the right path. So my advice really is to start with what you have. And like I said earlier, very often what you have is within your business already. So it might be some data, it might be no data at all, or it might be absolutely loads of it, but you haven't got it in a nice place. It might be specific resource within your business, or specialist skill sets, or it might be expert knowledge. And it might even be just simply a set of results that show what you currently do, but you'd like to make some incremental improvement with it. So take what you already have and set out some hypotheses that you know about your business and start to test around those, so that you're determining whether they're positive or negative things in terms of influence on your business. And you can often do that because I sometimes get asked, but if we start doing all of this stuff over here, then we just get criticized because there's a drop in performance. And actually what I would say is you can usually do this kind of testing alongside business as usual, so that you avoid those drops. And it will also help you determine, as you go on that sort of test and learn journey, what the future technology that you needs to do for you, and what it is that you don't know today that you would like to know in the future. And what I would also encourage is, bring together, this is the culture part. So make sure that you don't do this on your own. Bring together cross sections of your business so that together you're solving for your customer. And you're designing approaches that reflect multiple areas of the business, because this will be important once you come to execute it. Because if you don't have everybody lined up and signed up to using data in that way, then you'll find that people kind of point the finger and question whether it's working or not. By doing that, by bringing lots of people together, what it does is it roots data at the center of your decision making, which is ultimately what you're trying to do.
E-commerce Master Plan is supported by some of the greatest companies in the e-commerce sector. Here's a reminder of who they are.
Omnisend, the marketing automation platform tailored for e-commerce. Omnisend provides sophisticated omnichannel marketing automation tools for sales-driven marketers that have outgrown generic email marketing platforms. Engage your customers and boost your e-commerce sales with dynamic emails, text messages, Facebook Messenger, and retargeting ads on Facebook and Google, all from just one platform. Try Omnisend for free for 14 days. Just visit omnisend.com/masterplan and get started. In the last ad break, you heard a review from a retailer just like you of my new book, E-commerce Marketing: How to Get Traffic That Buys to Your Website. It's a Kindle bestseller in the UK, USA and Australia. And as a past podcast guest Chantal put it on amazon.co.uk, if you run an e-commerce business, buy this book. You can follow her advice by grabbing the Kindle or paperback on your local Amazon store now. Or if you're not quite ready to commit to buying the book, then head to ecommercemarketingbook.com to get the free crash course, including the first 2 chapters.
It's time for the top tips round.
I love this section because it gives me and our listeners some really quick ideas for taking our businesses to the next level. Not that you haven't already given us those in spades, Nicola. So are you ready for the top tips?
I am.
Cool. The book top tip. If everyone listening to this podcast agreed to take Friday off and read a book to make their business better, which book would you recommend?
Okay, so what a lovely thing to be able to do. I would recommend The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team by Patrick Lencioni. I think that's how you say it. The book was actually recommended to me when I was struggling with delivering change through my team. The type of change actually that's resulted in me changing the way that I work. And the book explores some of the reasons that teams fail. And so like many books, there are things that I don't wholeheartedly agree with. But what really stood out to me was that consensus was not required in order for something to be the right thing to do. And as a leader and a manager, I really struggled with that because I felt that I'd failed if there was something to do and I couldn't convince everybody that it was the right thing to do. But actually, I'd failed to see that conflict that I was trying to avoid was because I'd brought together teams of people who had varying experience, opinions, perspectives. And I'd brought those people together because they gave me the best chance of delivering the right result. So I couldn't then be cross or feel that I'd failed if those people in deciding how we were going to approach things had different views. And it really helped me just leave that behind and say, do you know what? We're all good. We don't all have to agree. We just have to sign up to deliver it.
Love it. Okay, the traffic top tip. Which marketing method do you either prize above all others or think doesn't get the press it deserves?
Well, the depth of my experience is really around driving repeat traffic. And so the best advice I have here really is know where your customer is, because that's going to be the best channel for them. So it's not really about looking at channel performance overall. It's about looking at how your customer, the customer or group of customers that you want to behave in a certain way, behaves in each channel, and then responding to them in that channel. So in some cases, this might mean really exhausting one particular channel, or it might actually be more of a blend of multiple channels. But the most success I've seen when driving traffic growth has really been through creating engagement and visit segmentations. What they do is, or what they did for me, was that they enabled me to predict and target efficiently so that I was identifying traffic that wouldn't organically have visited the site. And then I was able to go out and invite them back to the site.
Nice. Okay, the tool top tip, maybe a collaboration tool, a social media plugin, a phone app, or just a way of working. Is there a cool little tool you use that makes you and your team more efficient from day to day?
This is where you feel kind of technophobe. But I think for me, I still find that Trello works, or something similar like Asana or Monday.com, something that appeals to different ways of working and different ways of ordering tasks, and can allow your team as a whole team to be able to see at view what's happening in different areas of the team. Because I think being able to do that without spending hours sort of managing a project management tool, it just gives them that transparency and accountability, and allows leaders such as myself to be able to dip in and see what progress is being made, without necessarily getting into the detail all of the time. And the other thing that I like about it is that these tools are really thinking about how they can train methodologies such as Agile, which I found was really useful coming at it from a business perspective, because that's how IT teams were working. So it actually facilitated those two departments, which usually never the twain shall meet. It actually facilitated us working better together and speaking each other's language.
Anything which can help marketing and IT work better together is
Yeah.
worth doing. I once worked in a retailer where they had the genius idea of sitting us all on the same bank of desks, which, given the amount of noise that marketing made compared to the fact that the IT team, strangely enough, were busy coding the website, and thus noise was not good. We got on, but it wasn't a good scenario for anybody, I don't think. So yeah, anything which helps that relationship is good by me. Okay, the growth top tip. If you met someone today who's focused on growing their e-commerce business from 100 orders per month to 1,000, what would be your number one tip for them?
Right. So there isn't just one. There never is just one with me. But, I think scaling at that rate really relies on delivering newness. And I haven't really seen any business that doesn't need to continue to focus on driving new customers to their site. And that's coming from somebody who's a retention expert. But, the 4 pillars to me in getting this right is about being able to distinguish new from existing or new from returning, and making sure that all departments are signed up to what that criteria looks like, so that you're not all claiming the same thing. Being clear on what channels give you the optimum efficiency and response, so that you're investing your budget well. Being prepared, particularly in some industries, for a negative ROI when you're driving that newness, because that initial order, particularly if your average item value is low, won't necessarily give you an ROI, but you've got to sort of look at lifetime value. And then finally, get your retention team in order, and make sure that from the moment that new visitor, that new contact reaches your site, they have an amazing nurturing program to make sure that customer never leaves you.
Awesome 4 pieces of advice there. You can, if you're going to give that kind of level of content, you can have 4 any day of the week. Nicola, it's been awesome learning from you in this podcast, and I know the listeners will have picked up a lot of advice from this. Now, you are now working freelance, helping retailers and agencies to improve their customer marketing results. So do you want to tell us a little bit more about that, and where anyone who's listening who's thinking, I need Nicola, can get in contact with you, please?
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, that's right. It's a new endeavor for me, but one that is rooted in my belief that marketers should be able to make their ideas happen and not feel like they never quite got there. So I'm simply aiming to facilitate those teams to make it happen. And in many ways, I completely avoid calling what I do consultancy, because I'm not there to tell you what to do. I'm there to facilitate bringing what you want to do and making it happen. And of course, technology has improved. So, there will be people out there who kind of think, I don't need Nicola because I've got technology. But I think, as I've talked about during the session today, just simply having that technology doesn't mean people will adopt it. And so that's where I believe I can step in. So, I don't want to sort of limit what I could do for you or overpromise, but, the types of things that I might be able to help you with are things like conducting research, or drawing on my contacts to find suitable technology for you, or it might be working with your teams to review the strategy or where you are in the delivery of that strategy, or it might simply be just sitting with the teams and exploring some of their ideas and helping them see and unlock how they might be able to make that happen. Because in my experience, those are the things that stand in the way of businesses getting an ROI on the investments, particularly in technology, that they make. And so, yeah, I'd love to speak with people. And you can contact me directly through LinkedIn or by email. And my business is Fine Tooth Comb. And today, because I would love to sort of just get talking to people, I am offering a free 30-minute introductory conversation. So if you mention code masterplan, I'd be happy to run that 30-minute introductory call with you and talk about anything really, your projects, my experience, your experience, the product or the work that you're doing, the approach that you're taking, anything really that you're finding a challenge at the moment.
Wow, there's an awesome offer. Thank you very much, Nicola. We will add a link to your website and to your LinkedIn profile on the show notes page, so it's really easy for everyone to get into contact with you. Thank you again for being on the podcast today. I knew you'd share a lot, and oh my word, you have exceeded my expectations. I've learned a lot. I'm sure the listeners have learned a lot. So thank you very much, Nicola. It's been an absolute pleasure.
You are welcome. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
So much great insight given there by Nicola. If you are currently thinking you shouldn't be doing the batch and blast because you want to be increasing performance and improving customer experience, then it's time to get that tech in order. But make sure you buy the right tech for your business, not the tech that someone who doesn't know your business says you should have. And then get the culture right. Involve the whole team. So if you've got a big team who are going to be affected by this choice of tech, then involve them from the start too. Because if they're bought in with the decision process, then they're considerably more likely to like using it when you get to the end. As you're working through it, just start testing. Start working on some things, because every test you run, you're going to learn something which is going to help you build it out into the future. Do not start with a whole wall of whiteboards with a complex structure built, because the complex structure you imagine is probably not going to be the right complex structure to have at the end of the day. Now, to get your hands on the show notes from today's show, that's our notes on all that Nicola said, which I think you're going to need to read after this one because she shared so much great advice, plus all those top tips, the links and the details of some related episodes, then head over to ecommercemasterplan.com/podcast. I hope you've enjoyed this interview from our 2020 e-commerce masterplan growth series sponsored by Omnisend. We've got another 8 episodes in the series coming up for you, so please do make sure to check them out. We get a lot of people finding the e-commerce masterplan podcast for the first time during our growth series. So if that's you, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button, and also let me know what you think of the show by adding a review. And you can do that in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your player of choice. I hope you have a great week. Keep optimizing.
Thank you for listening to the e-commerce masterplan podcast. Find out more at ecommercemasterplan.com/podcast.